All righty, we will get started, gang. So good evening, welcome to our regularly scheduled Zoning Advisory Commission meeting for June 7th, 2023. I call this meeting to order. All right, Jason, would you please take roll?
Christ is excused. Kemp.
Here.
Here.
Norton.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Semp.
Here.
Zaccaro.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Can you please confirm we're in compliance with the Iowa Open Meetings Law?
We are.
Thank you. Okay, so commissioners, in front of you are our meeting minutes from our meeting on May the 3rd. I would like to entertain any modifications or a motion for approval.
I motion to approve the minutes from the May 3rd, 2023 meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Jason?
Norton.
I'm going to abstain.
Russell.
Aye.
Semp.
Aye.
Zaccaro. Kemp. Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, very good. So we have an agenda this evening with 4 items on it. Specifically, we've got 1 action item and 3 public hearings. So we're going to start off with the action items. I understand our applicant is attending virtually, so what I will ask is that they state their name, state their address, what it is they're asking for from the commission itself. We may have a couple of questions, and then we'll move into the staff report and additional conversation amongst the commission. So, Sheena?
I was just checking to see. We do have our applicant on. And Dave, if you can hear me, you'll just need to unmute yourself to be able to speak.
Yes, Sheena, this is Dave Schneider. I am here.
Okay, great.
Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Yes, Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. I'm a land surveyor basically working on this project representing Bob Miller and his nephew Ross Miller. This is the area kind of Sid's Beverage, north of Dodge Street, just to the east of University. And really it's kind of a lot reconfiguration. We basically are taking 3 existing lots and reconfiguring them into three lots. Basically, what happened there is Bob Miller, who owns what is going to ultimately be represented as Lot 1, built on some property owned by what was previously his sister's property, which is now his nephew Ross's property. And where he built the shed, the original intent was to basically just reconfigure 2 lots. But as we were going through the platting process here, we were notified by the building department that we were required to have at least 5-foot setback off of the lot line to avoid some fire protection, additional fire rating of the wall of the shed that was built on the nephew's property. So, which basically we added the other lot in and reconfiguring all 3 of them. So basically taking 3 lots and adjusting them into 3 lots is what the intent is here, and trying to satisfy the requirements of the city as they reviewed it here. I guess that's the situation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before we move on to the staff report, do we have any questions for Mr. Schneider? Okay, seeing none. Dave, thank you. Sheena.
Yes, thank you, Chair Mulligan. Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So as the applicant articulated, this is a reconfiguration of 3 existing lots, which qualifies it as a minor subdivision, which requires both the Zoning Advisory Commission and the City Council review and approval. As you can see in the image here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, this is the existing detached garage or shed that was previously built. As you heard Dave articulate, there's some family ownership of property in the area here, and so that garage was built over these existing property lines. And so what they're looking to do is to essentially subdivide a portion of this light blue lot to remove the shed, and then also a portion of this green lot to basically create a little lot here that would then be consolidated with this property to the north. So they're essentially going from 3 lots to 3 lots. It's just a reconfiguration of those 3 lots. The only other factor that requires review would just be that the lot to the north here has frontage along New Haven. The lot here in green will maintain frontage along Dodge, and then this lot in blue, and actually I'm gonna go to the next image here. This is the proposed configuration. It's a legally non-conforming lot with respect to not having street frontage, and so that condition would continue to exist. That lot in light blue here, the 2745, does have access from Dodge by way of an access easement across this property at 2727 Dodge. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
So that access easement exists today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it exists and it will maintain. It is included on this plat, which I can bring up here. If that, so as you can see here, this is the
yeah.
existing 40-foot wide access easement that will continue to, and that extends to this other property as well, and that will be maintained.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Sheena. Commissioners, any questions for staff? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Yes, I've got one quick one. Is no frontage for Lot 2 the only thing we're going to be basically waiving that's non-conforming or non?
Well, because
Doesn't
it's
need
a
a
minor subdivision, that's really 3 or more lots. Creating
Right.
3 or more lots is really what is the initial, and then, yes, you're correct. It's
Okay.
that street frontage
If it
requirement.
wasn't for that, it would be conforming and everything would be fine,
It would be just a traditional.
and then it would
minor.
just be a minor site plan or
Yeah.
a minor subdivision, and we
Yeah.
would go, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very good. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the plat as presented for 2745 Dodge Street and to waive the lot frontage for Lot 2 of Stagger Heights. Is it number 2?
Plat 3?
Plat 3.
I'm sorry, Stagger Heights Plat 3. Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second.
Russell,
Aye.
Semp,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. Mr. Schneider, that will go before the city council on June 20th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our public hearing. So public hearing will be a little bit different for those of you that are in the room tonight. So we'll ask our applicant to come up. They will give a presentation of what it is that they are requesting from the commission. We may or may not have a couple of questions for them. At that point, I'll open it up to a public hearing. There's a few of you in the room tonight. So what I would ask is if we're saying the same thing over and over and over again, please come up and just say same thing as that individual or something to that effect if you don't mind. And then the applicant will have the opportunity to have a rebuttal for what was stated. And once I close that public hearing, that's it. So just so you're aware. So having said that, I'll speak up. So having said that, what I will ask is we're going to move into public hearing item number 1, which is a rezoning of 575 Cedar Cross Road by Brandon Merrick and Mr. Norton.
I'm going to recuse myself from this and the next item.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, is our applicant here this evening? Come on up.
Hi there, my name is Brandon Merrick, 8293 Turkey Valley Lane I reside at. We are looking at proposing, I believe it's been broken into 2 separate zonings now, before it was 1. So,
Yeah, Brandon, for clarity, right now, we're discussing 575 Cedar Cross, just so you know. That's the
Okay.
first item, okay?
Yes. Looking at rezoning it to commercial, to put up a small commercial building of some sort.
Multifamily.
What's that?
It's the residential first, the residential application first. is what we're-
575 Cedar Cross, the
Okay, so that's the
description-
larger piece that resides off of
Correct.
Nightingale.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion,
Yep.
yeah.
Rezoning a property from R1 to multifamily residential. We're looking to put up 3 apartment buildings, 1 8-plex, 2 12-plexes, taking the green space, taking some minimal green space as much as we need off there, diverting down to the water, down to the detention basin, down to the backside there, as you can see. We would access that off of Nightingale Lane. It is kind of narrow on there, but we have been in discussions with the city about possibly widening that as you come in. So it's about.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Okay, so well, we might have a few questions. I'll defer to the commission here. We'll have a public hearing opened up. I'm assuming a couple folks will have something to say, and then I'll go ahead and ask you to come back up and give a response to anything you heard there, okay? So before you go away, commissioners, do you have any questions with what it is that Brandon is asking for? Okay, very good. You can have a seat. Okay, so like I said, we're going to open it up for a public hearing. So what I'll ask is come on up. We'll do one at a time. State your name, your address, and specifically what you have to say regarding 575 Cedar Cross. So I'll open it up.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Dillon. I live at 505 Woodland Ridge. I'm also the president of the Turnberry Homeowners Association. We have 52 units on Woodland Ridge and a few up on Starlight. And we all received the letter that you sent out, and I have like 3 areas I'd like to address. The first one being traffic. Cedar Cross Road is kind of a cut over from 20 people going downtown, people going wherever. The rush hour in the morning and in the evenings, it's hard to get out onto Cedar Cross Road. The other thing is off Nightingale, there's ball diamonds down there. They bring in a lot of cars when they have tournaments and games. There's also daycare off Nightingale. Fairly large one. People are dropping their children off in the morning and then picking them up in the evening. And there's a time in the morning, a couple hours in the evening, maybe a little longer if there's events down there. It's difficult to get onto Cedar Cross. I'd like to know, have you done any traffic studies out there? Has the city done that? Adding apartments down there, it just seems like we're going to be adding to the mess of the traffic. The next thing is, and then, wait, one more thing about traffic. It's a 2-lane road. There's no, Nightingale's a small city street. I just don't know how that street can hold all that traffic. And my guess is it doesn't get plowed first when we have inclement weather in the winter. So that's another area. The next thing is noise. The Rose apartment butts right up to where this development is proposed to go. That's a senior housing building. And there's noise for them when the ball diamonds are going on. I just think nobody's thought of that. And the third thing is the ecology of the land. That land is full of trees right now. And you start cutting down trees, how are you going to route the water through there? I think it's only prudent that some environmental person comes in and does something, studies that environment there. It's a small area, and it's, in my opinion, it's kind of shaped like a bowl. So,
Okay.
so anyway, that's what I would like you all to consider. I think if you can do the studies and think that maybe this can be done, I think you'd have people at least assured that this isn't going to turn into a problem down there a few years down the road. I don't know if you guys ever do any site visits to look at land. I would encourage you to try to do that because it's a weird shaped piece of land. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ellen. Maybe come
Yeah, you gotta come closer.
on here. You can go next. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Carol Moss, and I live at 3095 Nightingale Lane. I've called that home for 51 years. I'm a very frugal person, and I worked hard and long hours to get my home to the point where I'm proud of it. But tonight I stand before you to voice my opposition to the proposed rezoning of the property that one borders two sides of my home. These proposals will negatively impact the use of enjoyment of not only my property, but my surrounding neighbors. Relating to the proposal for 405 Cedar Cross Road, this property should be zoned R1 due to the proximity of my home and the other home close by. Regarding the proposal for 595, the quantity of apartments will significantly increase the population of our neighborhood. This will be adversely affect our quality of life and well-being, as well as that of the ABC daycare, the Arctic Glacier Ice, and the home at 401 Cedar Cross Road. In addition, the development will cause strain on the road and services that are in place. It is overdevelopment in that area and should not be allowed to go ahead in its current proposed plan. I am asking you not to recommend this zoning change, and to I think I did invite you out to come and park in my driveway and look at the area. But anyway, in the past, ours was a controversial area. I can honestly say that for the past years, now the homeowners and the businesses in our neighborhood have been peacefully coexisting. We would welcome a nice R1 residential home to our neighborhood anytime. But taking a village and planting it in this oddly shaped parcel of land is just not what any neighbor or our neighborhood should have. I thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
My name is Mike Reed. I live at 3185 Nightingale Lane. I've lived there for 16 years. I'm opposed to this new development. I'm an emergency responder for a local utility. I need to get out. I need to have access to the road. I'm afraid that this new development is going to be a restriction with traffic. Traffic's already bad enough, and we do not need this. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mike.
Hi, my name is Virginia Till. I live at 580 Woodland Ridge in Dubuque, Iowa. First of all, I'm going to back up what the previous person from our area came and talked about. Today I went and talked to the owner of the Dubuque Independent Baseball League, whose name is Mike Edmonds. I also talked to a board member, his name is Dave Kaffer, and talked about, first of all, the season of the baseball. Season begins April, season ends in July. The games start at 4:45, go to 10. I asked, what's the traffic like? They have 500 people there usually a night. That does not include tournaments. For example, there was a tournament last weekend, June 3rd and 4th, with 1,200 people. There will be a tournament this weekend, June 10th and 11th, with 1,200 people. I talked to Gus Sahaya, city engineer, concerning traffic counts. That's the term he gave me for understanding the volume of traffic. He was going to call me back and give me the most recent traffic count on Cedar Cross Road, and I have had a long talk with him. I don't know if you're also aware that an address 380 has been on Cedar Cross Road, which is behind the Dubuque Sign Company, is 11 acres, has been purchased by A.J. Spiegel, and has yet not made into a mini mall, or that's 11 acres. That also is in the future. It has already been approved and rezoned, and he said they haven't heard from Mr. Spiegel as when that will go into building yet. So that will be definitely an increase in traffic on Cedar Cross Road. My concern too is I did ask a representative of our ward to attend, but she gave me the term I'm not sure how to pronounce it, quasi-judicial. Can you tell me what the difference between that is and traditional? Why she's not able to attend?
So what we'll do is we'll address that during the staff report.
During the what?
During the staff report, we'll address that question.
But they're not allowed to come and hear the public prior to that?
Right. Correct. But
Who made that decision?
The state law.
It's a state law.
It's a state law. Okay, thank you. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Virginia.
My name is Jeff Anglin. I also live at on Turnberry or Woodland Ridge, 585. I'm also in opposition to this development. My main concerns are the traffic in the area. The developer did say that Nightingale, working maybe with the city, that road would be widened. If you've gone down Nightingale, it is very narrow. And what, like the lady previous to me said, you know, with the traffic, with the Ball Diamond going on to Cedar Cross, I think it should be everyone's concern. And not only right now, but there, like Ginny just said, there's a lot of opportunity for development on Cedar Cross. So if something isn't done to the road itself, I don't know how we could ever support the traffic that we're talking about. So you know, if there has been studies, I hope we really review those studies. And if there hasn't been studies, I think it's imperative that we do study that area, not only right now, but surely for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hello, my name is Mike Reinert. I reside at 401 Cedar Cross Road, and both of these requests affect me directly, as 405 Cedar Cross Road is next door, 575 Cedar Cross Road is directly behind. So I abut these properties on two sides of my property. The impacts are many. I mean, just with a 32-unit apartment complex being put in, you know, the noise. People, now you have 32 units. You have the number of people that are going to be there from the apartments, the noise that will be increased. The people staying where they belong. You know, now they're in the apartment. The apartments are not conducive for outside recreational life. So people are going to look for areas to get outside the apartment complex property and get into somebody else's property. Maybe it even gets into where they go for a walk, but yet they're going to cut across somebody else's property. You know, nobody signed up for 32 units to potentially 64 plus people to be directly in the middle of everybody else's backyards that are affected by this apartment complex. Traffic. Traffic is a huge issue because Nightingale Lane never has been designed to handle even the ball fields, the Dubuque Sports Complex, down at the bottom of the hill. You know, there are people that are waiting 20 minutes to get out onto Cedar Cross Road from Nightingale Lane. It's the only way out. Now you're going to add up to 64 more cars that are going to be coming in and out of the apartment complex to exit onto Nightingale Lane, to exit out onto Cedar Cross Road. There's Nightingale Lane, because of its design, that it's never been designed adequately for something like this. There's zero curb and gutter. It's not a road conducive for this, but yet there's large truck traffic. There's, from the commercial business that is the ice house or the ice manufacturer. Then there's other things that I know city staff has looked into this, but I don't know that they've looked into it adequately. You know, I think that they're looking at it from the standpoint that somebody's made a proposal, but are we truly considering the impacts on the neighborhood and cramming a 32-unit apartment building in the backyard of some, in the side yards of some? You know, the parking lot shows up there, or shows on the drawing, that when people come in to park, they're going to turn their car into their parking stall. Headlights will bounce off of, maybe there's a buffer there, maybe it's adequate, maybe it's not, but lights are going to be shining into somebody's home. City services, it's said that they're adequate, but are they? There's a sewer line that runs down along Nightingale Lane, but now you're going to add 32 units that is going to dump into this sewer line, and the elevation of where we want to put the apartment buildings, there's already E1 pumps, sanitary sewer stations that are moving the sanitary up to Cedar Cross. It has to be pumped because it's already at a grade lower than gravity flow will allow. So now you have probably have the situation that a pump station is going to have to be put in place. Who's keeping that in mind? I don't know that anybody is. It's not in the staff reports. I think we're putting the cart in front of the horse big time on this. Garbage pickup. At 401 Cedar Cross Road, I already deal with garbage pickup from Birch Heating and Cooling, and I have talked to Birch Heating and Cooling about this, but I have garbage trucks that pick up at 3:30 in the morning. So now you hear the slamming and the banging of a roll-off dumpster, the cardboard dumpsters and the garbage dumpsters from these trucks that roll in and out from 3:30 on. City garbage trucks are not allowed to roll out of Public Works until after 6 o'clock. So all you hear is the noise from the trucks the hydraulics, the engine, and then the beeping when the trucks back up. I'm going to assume that the 32-unit apartment complex is also going to have to use a contracted service, because 32 units, the people will have to roll their carts out to the curb. City trucks do not pull up into this driveway. So these people will have to roll their tipper carts out to the curb so that the trucks can pick them up. Or it's going to be a contracted service, because city trucks will not come up into this parking lot. They're not allowed to come up into the parking lot. So now you have the potential for another truck directly behind me, directly in front of the house that's right there on the corner of Nightingale and the entrance to this complex, and have to listen to this. Most likely, 3:30 in the morning. You get to the detention basin, the water runoff, all of it is going to go down to the detention basin. When the detention basin releases its water, where's it going to go? The road down to the ball fields and to the two homes that are up on top of the bluff up above the ball fields, that road has already been washed out different times over the years because of the runoff without a detention basin. Now you have a flat parking lot that does nothing but collect the water, send it to the detention basin, and the detention basin is going to have to release this water. Where's it going to release it to? Has that study been done? With the realignment of Cedar Cross Road coming, you know, that alleviates some of the traffic issues up on Cedar Cross Road, because with that, I see in the staff reports that there's a right turn lane, but that only gets the people in and out of Nightingale Lane, down to the ball fields easier. There's nothing to get them out of there any easier. And add 64 more vehicles, 64 or 32 tenants, however that stacks up, traffic still becomes a problem. With the 32 units going up, you know, the question is, what are the buffers going to be? How are you going to protect? Because the 32 units, again, are smack dab in the center of a lot of residential properties. What buffers can be put in to protect this and keep the impact of the 32 units from affecting others? You know, the 32 units can also, it definitely carries the potential to affect the daycare that's down already on Nightingale Lane, you know. Granted, sex offenders can't live in a 32 unit within, or live in an apartment building within 1,000 feet. But what about sex offenders that we don't know about? You know, now you're putting 32 units, the possibility of somebody living there with direct view over top of a daycare and a playground that abuts 32 units. The potential of a problem certainly is there.
Okay, Mike, what else do we have?
Just, again, I guess the other question that I would ask strongly would be, keep in mind, if this was placed in your backyard, how would you guys feel?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
My name is Kevin Donovan. I'm own the property at 15 Nightingale Lane, the daycare center, with my wife. Our biggest concerns are, like everybody else said, the traffic. 32 more units, that's at least, just say, figured an average of 64 cars. Number one, the parking lot is only designed for 48. Where's the rest of the people going to park their cars? Can't park it on Nightingale Lane, it's only 22 feet wide. They're not going to park in my parking lot. They talked about a turning lane going to Cedar Cross Road, like Mike just said. Yeah, that's possibly of 2027. They've been talking about redoing Cedar Cross Road since 2010, I believe, when I looked back up. Will it happen? Who knows? They might just mill it and overlay it like they have been. What about school buses? You know, if you give access out on Nightingale Lane, the school buses, where's that going to stop? It's probably going to stop right at that driveway. Well, there's only 220 feet from Nightingale Lane, or from Cedar Cross Road to Carol Moss's residence. That's after the driveway, the proposed driveway. That's going to really impede traffic for the daycare, for the ice plant, for people getting out, having to go to work. And you know, everybody's seen a bus. It might sit there for 10 minutes waiting for these kids to get on the bus because they're too slow and the parents don't get them up and get them going. So what's that going to do to everybody's schedule? Another concern is the drainage, like everybody says, but I'm worried about it coming the way it's graded on my property. My property is, I got a hill, but then I got a flat because of the way it was. I didn't design the building years ago. But I see there's a storm drain, but is it graded right? They talked about a buffer. What's going to be there? Will it stay maintained? I don't want to look at I don't mind looking at the grass and the trees and the weeds. I don't want to look at a bunch of garbage, a bunch of old rundown trees, overgrown. Like I said, it's a nice little neighborhood, nice residents. We're worried about sex offenders, vandalism. You know, I know Section 8 housing, affordable housing, whatever you want to call this, they get state money, city money, but will the city pay the residents, the Mosses, Mike's, anybody who actually directly borders property? You're going to pay for extra cameras, security, lights for our properties so we can see what's going on? The parking lot will be lit up, but what happens after hours? Another thing was brought up by somebody else was the noise. Well, if somebody comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning, the parking lot, when you first turn in there, is less than 15 feet from the Mosses, north side of the residence. That's where their bedrooms are. So somebody pulls in there, lights are gonna shine in the window, they click their remote control to lock the car, you get horns beeping all the time, or hit the panic button and it's beeping. Nobody's gonna get a good rest, none of the neighbors. I really strongly oppose doing this. Let's say keep it as R1. It's going to be the best for the traffic and for all the neighboring residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else?
So my name is Melissa Donovan, and I'm the director and part owner of ABC Learning on 15 Nightingale Lane. I do agree that we need more affordable housing, but just not in my backyard. A lot of people already touched on all the points that I had. I take the safety and security of my children, and yes, I call them my children, very, very serious. And I have such an amazing relationship with the businesses and families in our neighborhood. Currently, we have such a strong relationship that with the ball field, we do things together. The ice plant, we get together and do fun things. We have had no concerns and no problems. Even with the Kennedy Farm, we do fun things. It's my understanding that all tenants will have background checks. How can we guarantee that all 64 people will be approved? Am I going to be able to see that to make sure? What about their visitors? Will there be some big buffer so nobody can see over my fence? Like it was already brought up, where There's no room. Everything's being compacted into one place. If you've ever been to my childcare center, you'll see that we have a very natural playscape. It looks almost like a park. How are you going to keep all of these children away from my park? No vandalism. How am I going to protect that? I'm sorry, having vandalism. What about the trees, the birds, everything that the children love and they get excited for, the hummingbirds that they come into? They already talked about the closer families and vehicles that'll impact our atmosphere. Do you have anything else you guys wanted to add? What about the debris during the construction and after the construction? What about making sure that during the construction, all those vehicles are going to be safe and those workers are going to be safe? They're so close to my fence. So I guess I'm just coming to you with you thinking strong about this, of where this is located, just for the safety of my babies.
Thank you, Melissa. Anybody else this evening?
Ron Knoll, 465 Woodland, and I'll apologize from the start. I tried to hear everything. I'm hard of hearing, so if I repeat something, just say, okay, move on. I've lived there 18 years, and then when I first moved in, Cedar Cross was on a 5-year plan to be totally reconstructed. Got yanked off. Going to go for another 5, yanked off. It's done nothing but been band-aided together. Looking through all this, I see you approved rezoning at 1061 Cedar Cross for a possible car wash coffee shop. We just can't keep throwing traffic on there. We just can't do it. It's supposed to be widened out. There's no sidewalks on most of that. Typical, you know, just like JFK, no sidewalks, no sidewalks, no sidewalks. Now you're going to throw an apartment on there, no sidewalks, people walking, totally unsafe. Again, thank you for your time. And
thank you, Ron.
Good evening. We live at 3400 Nightingale Lane, and here to oppose the rezoning.
Share your name.
Oh, Jessica Knabel-Kemp.
Thank you.
Here to oppose this rezoning. You know, we went into this location building our dream home, and we put a lot of work, sweat, blood, and tears into doing so. And the thought of this plan becoming a reality is terrifying to me for my children. The safety alone, everyone's talking about the traffic. That's great. You have to wait 15 extra minutes. That's really inconvenient. But what's that mean for children wanting to walk? We have no sidewalks on Nightingale Lane. That in itself doesn't, you know, provide a safe environment when we're adding all these extra vehicles that are going to come and go. Another thing, people have talked about the runoffs, the water. There's no storm sewer. That's a concern. We sit lower as well. What else?
Also, to add to that, with no storm sewer, the water runs down in between our property and the back of the ball field, and that is already eroding away. So adding another large space of all concrete or blacktop, that's just going to add more water that's rushing down there that's going to keep eroding away our property. Also, like it was mentioned before, I work for utility, and I also have to get out in a timely manner to get to emergency situations.
One thing, you know, these buildings may go up and look beautiful. Are they going to be maintained as affordable housing? I think everyone's seen things that can happen to those units. So what's that going to mean for the value of our homes in the future? You know, is the city going to lower our property taxes? I highly doubt that. And we've built a beautiful neighborhood, and I'd like to keep it that way. And I, most importantly, would like to keep it safe for my children and the future that I want for them. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Mark Arnstorff. I live at 3300 Nightingale Lane. Live there with my in-laws, Pat and Trish Kennedy. I am also opposed against this proposed zoning. A few things, pretty much everything has been touched on already, but I would just like to reiterate a few of them. Snow plowing has been an issue. I myself have gone up to the corner of Nightingale right in front of Carol's house and personally had to remove snow from that on the street because it was not plowed and taken care of. And now I fear that when you put more cars coming from the apartment complex, that they may come out and get stuck in the snow out there. The next thing I'd like to touch on is I am a small business owner myself. I do have several large trucks and trailers that need to get out, and it is already a hassle for myself to get out from Nightingale Lane onto Cedar Cross. So with more traffic being on there, that's only going to put a delay in my day as well as everybody else's. As far as the ball fields comment goes, I myself have talked with Mike down there, and he has reiterated to me that he has a tournament down there every single weekend, basically from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. So there is nonstop traffic on there as it is. Another point that was brought up is there's no recreational area for all these people to be in. And naturally, humans are curious, so what's to keep these, you know, when they have their free time to be walking around aimlessly? And several of us in the neighborhood have had very large properties, so I fear that they will be trespassing onto our land. And my last point would be, what is the advantage of putting these units in here? I only see disadvantages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Hello, my name is Emily Wilson, and I reside at 3135 Nightingale. I moved there about a year and a half ago, and the biggest advantage was the small community feel of that neighborhood, and I felt like it was a very welcoming and safe area for my 10-year-old daughter. I would agree with every point that has been made earlier on traffic, safety, all of those things. The only other thing I wanted to point out is I did read the City of Dubuque Unified Development Code regarding the rezoning, section 9.5. And my biggest takeaway is that I do not believe rezoning this that the property has not materially changed to classify this rezoning, and I don't think it was originally zoned as a mistake as R1. I think every one of my neighbors would agree that R1 is where it should stay. So, thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
We live at 601 Cedar Cross Road. My name is Lester Sarzen. I guess my biggest concern is that somebody might be killed at that intersection. That intersection from Cedar Cross. And what's proposed is probably only about 200 feet. The semis that come around that corner off of Cedar Cross Road are probably 50 foot long. By the time they make that corner, and quite often they're exceeding the speed that they should be doing as they make that turn, they're already approaching what is proposed for an entry street into 575, I guess it is. So that's too short of a distance for semis to come around there and expected to be stopping when the traffic is exiting from that proposed unit. That's the biggest concern. There's kids going down there every day to that child care center. And there's not only the ice company with the semis, but there's Fairway Foods with the big semis coming by. We just don't want somebody to be killed there. Okay, that's my main concern.
Thank you, Lester.
My name is Jason Moss. I reside at 3095 Nightingale Lane. I pretty much agree with everybody here that's been talking this evening with all the impact that it's going to have on our neighborhood. One of the main concerns too, being that our home resides pretty much right on, the new proposed plan resides on two sides of our property, especially to the area to the north. What they were proposing had a parking lot pretty much facing directly into the north side of our house. And that's only 15 feet or less from the back of our house, which we also have a couple bedrooms that are facing that way too. That's gonna really negatively affect us as far as for light pollution coming into our home. Not to mention the noise pollution as well. Every time, and like Kevin said too, every time that somebody gets in and out of their car, and it can be at all hours of the night, it's just going to be really noisy, especially that close to the residents. That 8-plex building too, which is only going to be sitting roughly about 20 feet from the side of our house, or maybe about 25 feet too. There's parking stalls there, and my biggest concern is going to be the noise and the light pollution that this proposal is planning here. And then everybody was touching base on the traffic. Now there's times, and we don't live that far from Cedar Cross Road, and there's times that I have to wait close to 10 minutes to get out of my driveway just to get onto Cedar Cross Road, especially when the ball diamonds are letting out. Now they're planning on putting up enough units there to allow more traffic on that road that is not set up for that. One of the biggest concerns too that I have is with the daycare center. And I know some people touched on that as well. And the amount of room between the back end of these apartment complexes and the edge of the playground facility, it's just really concerning. I mean, I've lived in apartments before, and you don't know who's coming, who's going. You don't have any real control. But in a neighborhood, you don't sometimes. But I know every single person on Nightingale, and I know all my neighbors surrounding the area too. And it's just a huge safety concern for the children that I have with these apartments going up. Now, I was looking through the staff reports, and they were talking about the traffic flow on Nightingale Lane and Cedar Cross Road, that it's minimal. Well, that study was done back in 2017. Well, even back then, in 2017, it was absolutely terrible. And I'm not sure if any of you ever driven on Cedar Cross Road right around rush hour, but it is absolutely crazy. It almost looks like Dodge Street at 5 o'clock. I mean, if you're trying to turn off of Nightingale Lane, or onto Cedar Cross Road from Nightingale Lane, good luck. You might as well turn right and go a different route around town just to try to pull out on that road. And you talk about emergency services trying to get down to the daycare facility, or down to the ball diamonds, or even to one of our residential homes. When you're adding that amount of vehicles and traffic and people, that's definitely a concern of mine, that this road and this area is not set up correctly to hold this amount of housing. Now, if you drive down Cedar Cross Road, there's plenty of development properties that be well more suited for this type of housing.
that'd be a lot easier to access. Now, granted, that doesn't take care of the problems that we're going to have on Cedar Cross Road, but in this little tiny little lot, it is not set up for it. So I greatly oppose the construction of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Okay. Anybody else this evening?
Hello, I'm Adam Kaiser, Caitlin Kaiser, my wife, 3155 Nightingale. Someone brought up everything that we were going to say. Makes sense. The traffic is horrible during the winter. They come down our lane, people get stuck. We've pushed so many people up our hill. We don't have anybody to come plow, so we're stuck in until a neighbor comes by with their plow. So, yeah, we're here saying, please don't.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else this evening? So what I'll do is I'm going to close the public session. So Brandon, if you'd like to come up and any rebuttals to what you just heard, the floor would be yours if you'd like it.
So I understand everybody's concerned with the traffic on that street. Every intersection on Cedar Cross is hard to get in and out of if you drive any time of the day there. But our section is up above, so we're not really kind of conjuring down below with everybody else that's parked down there. As far as the utilities and stuff, the utilities and everything are coming off Cedar Cross Road. There's nothing that's coming onto Nightingale. All our services are going to be accessed off that. We had planned on putting, privacy fences up and stuff on our property throughout the whole thing. The detention basin is going to be designed as per needed with Beasing and Associates and everything like that. So, other than that, it's an array of different commercial properties and residential properties there. So, it's kind of fits with everything that's already there. You have apartments down the street from Woodland there to your commercial properties off Cedar Cross Road as well.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to our staff report. Sheena, I lost my cheat sheet. That's you.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Chair
you.
Mulligan. Let me just pull up my PowerPoint here. Okay, so the request before us at this time is for a rezoning from R1 single family to a planned unit development with residential residential designation. This is for the property at 575 Cedar Cross Road. And before I go into more of the meat of my presentation here, I want to talk just a little bit about the process and where we are in that process for an applicant, for the applicant to potentially move this project forward. So step one would be to go through this rezoning process. Currently, the property does not allow for what this applicant is interested in developing here. And so prior to requiring applicants to invest a lot of money in extensive studies such as traffic studies and or full site development, engineered drawings, things of that nature. This is the first kind of stop. We talk about what would we maybe want to allow on this property. In this instance, because it is a planned unit development, the applicant is required to provide a conceptual development plan with that. That is part of the commission's review this evening. And I'll go through that in a little more detail here too. So step one would be to talk about the rezoning. From there, in the event that the rezoning were approved and an applicant were to move forward with the project, there is a number of other things they would have to go through. So the primary one initially being what is called our site plan review process. That is managed by the city's development review team. It includes representatives. Sure, yep, you bet. It includes representatives from both the engineering, actually from all city departments, so engineering, public works, building, stormwater engineers, traffic engineers, planning, fire, so we look at safety around fire access. We look at even police participates in that in the event that they would have any comments. So that is a joint effort by the city development review team. That is not a public process. It's not a public hearing. That is conducted directly with the applicant. We go through a number of reviews to make sure that that project is complying with all city requirements. And I'll get into some of those in a little bit more here as well. So from there, the applicant would also be required to go through the permit review. So prior to being able to obtain a building permit or any permits for excavating on the property, they would need to go through this development review process, and then they would also have to work with our inspection and construction services department to basically ensure that they're meeting all the building code requirements. So it's a multi-step process. And there are multiple pieces that go into each of those steps. So let me just proceed here. So I just want to, in the image before you here, I want to make a little correction in what you're seeing here. So that little finger piece that's coming up to Cedar Cross Road, the applicant has actually not included that portion in this request for the PR. It is just this lower section here, and one of my images later in the slides will show that. The applicant has indicated that they're interested in developing market rate apartments, that they are not interested in developing low income or accepting housing vouchers. That can always change with the property. That's not directly tied to the zoning necessarily. So if someone else were to buy this property in 20 years from now and they wanted to allow for housing vouchers, that is something that could happen. In this zoning district, and in, quite frankly, in any of our multifamily zoning districts, that would be something that could occur. So the property is currently undeveloped. It is a vacant lot. It has historically been zoned for residential uses. The project site is approximately 2.4 acres, and frontage and access to this site is being proposed off of Nightingale Road. It is an irregularly shaped lot. There is a topography change over the property, so approximately a 70-foot elevation change sloping downhill from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. Adjacent land uses include residential to the north as well as some commercial. To the east, primarily residential. To the south, residential and some commercial. And then to the west, there's commercial properties, but there is also some residential properties further to the west from that. Additional uses include, as we've heard from the neighbors here this evening, the Dubuque Sports Complex, the Child Care Facility, ABC Learning, Arctic Glacier, Premium Ice, the Ace Mobile Home Park, and then there's various other commercial uses along Cedar Cross Road. So let's talk a little bit about the development plan specifically. So I color-coded this as I think it's a little easier to kind of take in the details of what they are proposing here. So I want to just articulate again this area up here to the left, or to the, I'll call it above, the upper portion here, is that blue area. That is part of the other rezoning request that will be before the commission tonight, the 405 Cedar Cross Road. The area we're talking about at this point is the area outlined in green. And so again, access would be here from Nightingale. The areas that are in this kind of purple color is identifying the parking areas. And then you can see kind of in here the drive aisles between that's outlined in this darker purple color. The applicant is proposing three buildings, 2 3-story 12-unit structures, which are shown in yellow here, and then 1 2-story 8-plex. So that would be a total of 32 units that they're proposing. They are also proposing a total of 48 off-street parking spaces. That does meet the code minimum requirement. The code requires 1.5 parking spaces per residential unit, and so they are meeting that requirement. They are maintaining some green space on the property, and by green space I mean the remaining open space. That would be used for stormwater management, as well as, again, just meeting the city's requirement for open space for development. So let's talk a little bit about the potential impacts of the request. So when we evaluate projects such as this, we take a look at a number of different categories, which I've outlined here. The first that I have here is the utilities. The city water and sanitary sewer, they are adequate. They are in the area, and the city knows that there is adequate ability to service a project of 32 units. So that I want to be clear on. The public services, this would include, fire and life safety. We have adequate services in the city to be able to provide those services to this development. The environment, so the property is currently unimproved. As was articulated earlier by a number of residents, there are a number of mature trees and shrubs on the property. With this type of development, it is likely that a number of those would need to be removed as part of development. The city also has requirements that would be looked at through our development review team process for providing landscaping on the property. So there would be a minimum number of trees and shrubs that the applicant would have to provide as part of this development. Yes, and so the other thing we talk about is, as I mentioned earlier, the adjacent properties, residential, single-family residences to the northeast and southeast primarily, and then there are some commercial uses directly to the south, a little bit along the west and the northwest of the property. I want to talk about traffic. This was mentioned by a number of people. So one of the things we look at when we're evaluating this is what the average annual daily trips are on our roadways. And so the Cedar Cross Road is classified as a minor arterial. The Iowa DOT traffic counts tell us that there's approximately 9,800 average annual daily trips on that road. And along Nightingale, which is classified as a local street, there is 853 annual average daily trips along that road. So those are the numbers that we know of. The city is obviously always looking into counts and whatnot. Those numbers can change over time. I think one of the neighbors mentioned that this was taken from 2017. Yes, that's correct. These are the 2017 numbers. And so I want to make that clear as well. So the project will result in additional trips. Obviously, we're going from a vacant property to a now developed project being proposed. What I have what I understand from the city's traffic engineer is that a project of this scale and this use would generate approximately 280 daily weekday trips to and from the project, and then approximately 135 daily weekend trips. So that would be per day on a Saturday and a Sunday. One of the things that we mentioned in the staff report is the capital improvement plans for Cedar Cross Road. There is a proposal to develop and construct a turning lane, a right turning lane from Cedar Cross Road onto Nightingale Lane. This is slotted for the 2027 fiscal year. And I also want to point out that we did have a pre-application meeting with this developer. So pre-application meetings are essentially a step one, like primary step for a developer to come in and say, hey, I'm contemplating this project. What are the things that I need to be considering? And so in those instances, we do look at things such as utilities. We also had a discussion with the city's engineering department about how a traffic analysis would be needed. And that would be something that we would work with the applicant on, the details of the scope and whatnot. But that a traffic analysis would be needed, especially to evaluate Nightingale and what type of potential improvements may be needed along Nightingale Road to improve some of that access to and from Cedar Cross Road. And so that is in discussions with the applicant as well. So I want to talk a little bit about, I'm just going to roll through some of these criteria, and then I'm going to jump back to some of the comments here to make sure I've addressed some of the speaking points this evening. As the commission is aware, we've received 7 letters from adjacent property owners. Those were provided to you this evening for your consideration. We also just want to be clear that we also fielded a number of phone calls, just general inquiries, people trying to understand the process, wanting to know more about, just the general overall process and project. So that has been part of the public input process. And then I have laid out here the UDC criteria. The one that I want to, this is specifically for approval of a planned unit development. And I do want to point out the one that I think may rise to the top, and I believe one resident even made note of this language earlier, but that the proposed development shall not interfere with the appropriate use and enjoyment of property on abutting districts. I think that one warrants consideration by the commission in their review this evening. And with that, let me just check my notes. I want to make sure I haven't missed anything. As a matter of process, there was a question about quasi-judicial. So as a matter of process, this is step one in the process. So the commission is here this evening to make a recommendation based on their review and analysis of the project and the proposal. From here, it will go to the city council. City council will be the final reviewing authority. I mean, I should step back and say that the commission has a number of options. You wouldn't necessarily have to move forward with the recommendation this evening. You could potentially table the project. But at the end of the day, the city council would be the final reviewing body that would make the determination on whether or not this were approved or not approved. So that is part of the reason why part of that process to go through the city council review. There was a number of comments about noise. So the city does have a noise ordinance that would be in effect for this project. And it does specifically lay out hours in which noise needs to be controlled or reduced. That would also apply during the construction process. So there are specific requirements around noise and hours of construction that the applicant would have to adhere to as well. Just checking here. I believe that concludes the majority of my comments for this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Sheena. Could you pull up the current plat? There's an access easement from Cedar Cross to that parcel, right?
Here, yeah, here. Yeah. That's what you're referring to. So this portion here.
Is that existing?
So there is. However, the applicant in discussions about the right turn lane along Cedar Cross, we would need to look at. I should step back. So the applicant is not proposing to take access to this project from Cedar Cross Road. They are proposing just from Nightingale Road. And as you see in this image here, you'll see there's a curb cut proposed potentially. This is a concept plan for this lot. The big difference being between these two is that the next item on the agenda is a traditional rezoning. It does not require a conceptual plan like this rezoning does. However, the applicant has provided this in their planning process. We would need to look at, we being the city and the engineering department specifically, would need to look at and evaluate this access location for this northern lot, as that right turn lane would impact some of these properties right here. And there would most likely need to be some type of acquisition of property from the city in order to construct that turn lane. That was a long-winded answer to your question.
You're saying that the corner, who owns the corner property?
I'll have to check that.
Okay, that's okay. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, Murfeld Properties is the current owner of that corner property as well.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stop there for a minute and open it up to the commission for any questions that you might have for Sheena.
I have a couple. Sheena, why is this, can you clarify why this particular application is considered quasi-judicial? And maybe tie in a brief discussion on the ex parte communication part of it?
Yes, thank you. So quasi-judicial is considered a specialized zoning. So it requires the conceptual development plan. That is the big differentiation between that and what we would call a traditional rezoning. So a traditional rezoning is a property owner or is a rezoning to a zoning district that is already laid out in our Unified Development Code. Plan unit development allows for a developer to lay out specific development regulations through the planned unit development process. And so that's really the key difference, is that this conceptual plan allows for a specific layout to a property that would not necessarily be otherwise allowed through a traditional rezoning.
Okay, my next question switches to traffic. And I noticed people pointed out that the traffic counts were from 2017. What impact has, if any, has the construction of the Southwest Arterial had on the traffic on Cedar Cross, in your opinion?
That is a great question. I would have to probably refer to our city engineering staff to better understand the traffic flows and the specific numbers around that. I wouldn't have that data on hand to give you an adequate answer.
Mr. Chair?
Oh.
Yes, Wally.
Perfect.
This is Planning Services Manager Wally Wernemont. I have all the traffic counts here that I wanted to pull up. So for the Cedar Cross Road in 2001, it was 11,700 vehicle trips. 2005 was 13,300 vehicle trips. 2009, it was 10,500 vehicle trips. 2013 was 9,100. 2017 was 10,600 to 9,400. And then the Southwest Arterial opened in 2019. And in 2021, there are traffic counts out there for 9,800.
Thanks, Wally.
I'm sorry, are we saying the traffic count's 9,800 for 2021 for Cedar Cross? Is that what I just heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Okay, any other questions for staff specifically, and then we'll chat?
I'm just curious, Sheena, what determines when you need 2 access points for emergencies?
Sure, so that would be the number of units. Generally, for like a subdivision, it would be 50. So in this instance, one point of access would be adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sheena, let's see. As a design review team, from the city's perspective, I see 7 parking spots that are right at the entry. So a concern is if I have, there's a home there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we heard from, I'm sorry, Carol, maybe, is that right?
Yes.
As a design review team, we take into consideration what's occurring in that particular situation, right?
Correct.
And we're going to analyze whether it's landscaping, whether it's a buffer, what that buffer is, et cetera, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I will add that is generally correct. Through this process, in the event that the commission and/or city council were interested in any specific conditions around those pieces, around those areas, that could be part of the discussion if you so choose.
Right. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, so we'll open it up for conversation amongst the commission. And maybe I'll start. So I took a lot of notes here. And number one, I'll start with, I appreciate everybody coming down today to discuss your concerns, specifically how they affect your day-to-day, whether you're a business or your home is there. So we take those to heart. So thank you for that. I heard a couple of different things. I heard traffic, most certainly. We discussed noise. We discussed light pollution, parking, things of that nature, sidewalks along Nightingale, et cetera. Trespassing, things of that nature. So a couple things to touch on. So number one, it is at least described to be market rate. As Sheena had discussed, it could certainly be a low to moderate income property at some other point in time. So let's take that into account. I do want to discuss this design review team situation, because this is a very, and I want to express this to you as residents, is this is a very detailed process in which the site plan that's in front of you, or that's on the screen rather, is going to receive quite a bit of critique, and the developer has to answer for each one of those. And so that could be things that are specific to the headlights. That could be things that are specific to the placement of a trash can, for example. The placement of, things of that nature. I think there's going to be a lot of discussion amongst the developer and the city as it relates to what that access point looks like. I will tell the commission that I have real heartburn putting any types of conditions as it relates to traffic studies to a proposed development, because what it does not give us is a means of exit from that conversation. So the traffic study is an engineer's opinion, and from that point, it proceeds forward, as such, with those conversations put into place. But putting a condition such as a traffic study, it gives this commission a hard time from exiting that conversation because of what is the response that you're looking for as it relates to a traffic study. Let me see if I have any other comments to share here really quick. So why don't I stop there, and I'll end with this. I do respect the opinions of everybody that's in this room. There is a very long and detailed process that goes into any development that occurs in the city of Dubuque. And your concerns are valid, and they need to be heard, and they need to be discussed along the way. What happens tonight is we discuss whether or not rezoning it can occur. What we do not necessarily approve is that layout before you is what it's going to be. So I am in favor of proceeding forward with the rezoning for those reasons. So I will stop there and open it up for anybody else that has a comment.
I'll go next since I'm closest.
Yes.
I did have one other concern from the neighbors that I wanted to address and let them know what happens with that. There were 2 or 3 people mentioned the runoff from the detention basin after the water gets there from this development, and what happens after that will be addressed as part of the site plan review or development review team that Sheena mentioned earlier. So that will be addressed also. And as Sheena mentioned most recently, we can propose to add conditions to a PUD. I would be interested in requiring a solid fence where parking spaces abut adjoining residential properties. And I'll close my remarks with that.
I'll hop in here. I think I generally am very supportive of residential development and creating more places for people to live in the city of Dubuque. But I'll be honest, I'm having a lot of difficulty with this rezoning in particular. One of the big things for me is I'm used to having some residents come and tell us that they have concerns about a development. But it feels like we pretty much have every single person that lives next to this this proposed development is here tonight telling us that they are not a fan. I think that's pretty concerning. it is, this whole neighborhood already kind of seems like kind of a mishmash. We have a ballpark, we have commercial development, and residential homes. It's kind of a, as everyone has said here tonight, you know, there's a lot of traffic already. It seems like kind of a cluster at this point. Getting to my point, I have a hard time voting yes to rezone this property tonight, specifically because it has been zoned as R1 for quite a long time. And it, in the comprehensive plan, I believe it's listed as parks and open space. It seems out of place in this neighborhood to add such density. So for that reason, I likely will be not voting to rezone it tonight.
I'll go next here. I'll keep it brief because we're almost an hour and a half in. I appreciate everyone's feedback too. Coming out, time is very precious. So I appreciate the comments. Again, hearing a lot about traffic, noise. Sheena, to tag off with the city noise ordinance, it's like, how do you stop someone from locking their car alarm, though? That's not very reassuring. I personally will be voting no. I feel it's too aggressive for that area.
I also agree with Ryan, what he stated, and what Sheena pulled up. What did you highlight on the PUD? That one slide. It just, I don't think the rezoning doesn't keep with the existing surroundings of the area.
Okay. Okay. Any other conversation? We'll stop there. Okay. I will entertain a motion from our commission.
I'll move to recommend approval of the rezoning, subject to solid fence on the north side of 3095 Nightingale Lane and the south side of 401 Cedar Cross Road.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have an approval for that motion?
Second.
Or a second, excuse me. Can I second that? Okay, I do second that. I would like to move forward with a vote, please. Sure. So we are moving forward with a motion for vote. Jason?
Kemp?
No.
Russell?
No.
Semph?
No.
Zucchero?
No.
Mulligan?
Yes. So that motion does fail, 4-1, or 1-4, I suppose. So that recommendation will go before the city council. And as Sheena had mentioned, the city council is ultimately the final decision maker. So.
Correct.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yep.
And that meeting will be, the city council meeting will be on Tuesday, June 20th, to hear this request.
Yep. And you're welcome to be there. Yep.
Yes, ma'am, it is a public, yep.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
So we will have to do we will have to do an analysis to understand the percentage of input that we've received from. Oh, sure, Wally. Yep.
Sorry, Planning Services Manager Wally Wermont, because it's a recommendation of no from the Zoning Advisory Commission, that forces a supermajority vote at City Council. So they need 6 of the 7 votes in order to overturn the negative recommendation from the Commission.
Thank you, Wally.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next item. Item number 2 the public hearing is what's open for the public. So everything outside of that is closed for those of us that are in this room outside of those that are up here. So with that, we're going to move on to item number 2. If our applicant would please come forward. Let's see, 405 Cedar Cross Road.
Well, that would be commercial zoning the property on the commercial side, but there is an offer on the table to buy this property. So if this isn't rezoned, it's a one and done deal for everything, just not the front piece. So I guess that's kind of where we stand with that.
Are you, that a request to?
What's that?
Chair, Mr. Chair.
Well, yeah, Wally.
So, like we mentioned, this has been broken down into 2 requests. So, I actually suggest that you proceed with a public hearing on the commercial side of the request. They will go before the city council separately. What we don't want to do is have it go before the city council without having this other one being reviewed. So. And have a determination based on it. So it is up to the applicant. He could table his request for the commercial side of things to just take the residential through, but I highly suggest that you proceed with the public hearing over the commercial, and then we can have them both before council. So they're tied together for a land purchase.
Yeah, understood. Thank you. Okay, what you're saying is you proceeding forward with the transaction is dependent upon the rezoning of both. Is that right? So
if one doesn't go, then
the
whole thing doesn't go.
Right.
So would it be possible just to withdraw the second request then?
Yeah. I mean, that would probably be the ideal thing. If
I'll just make, as Wally mentioned, I'll just reiterate that the city council review will be the final determination. So tonight is just a recommendation. It's not the final decision. And staff's recommendation would be to proceed with this review as well, so that the commission could then make a recommendation rather, and you could proceed. It is up to you, Mr. Merrick, if you'd like to proceed.
Well, yeah,
or not, but that would
if you
be
want to take a vote on it,
recommendation.
that's up to you guys then, I guess. So,
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I don't know how to jump in when I'm doing virtual, but if Mr. Merrick were to withdraw his application, and it goes to the city council, and how are they determined? Say, for instance, if they were to approve it, I'm not saying they're going to approve at the city council level for the residential. If he were to table his request here, he'd have to come back to the commission to rezone this portion of the property separately at a different time. So,
yeah, I think he's aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Wally. Yeah, the ball is in your court. If you don't have an issue coming back after going through the city council, I'm going to assume that the residential piece is the larger
correct
topic in your mind.
Yes.
So it is your decision. If you don't mind coming back again, tabling it is easy. You've done your homework already. Or if you would like to go forward, we're all ears.
I'll move forward. I mean, but if we're going to have everybody come up and talk about it again, then, I mean, you might as well just take a vote. It's the same thing, so.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do want to proceed forward with this
that's fine.
rezoning. Okay, so Brandon, give us the quick once over on.
It's a piece of property on Cedar Cross Road that adjoined the other property that we looked at putting up a 60 by 70 building there for either warehouse or some sort of storage use.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll open it up for a public hearing. Any comments?
Oh, here's the uses.
Hello again. Again, my name is Mike Reinert. I reside at 401 Cedar Cross Road. My address abuts right next door to the 405 Cedar Cross Road address. Make it clear that I'm against this being rezoned to a CS status. Again, it's very difficult to imagine it being a commercial property when for years, and we're talking 40 years, that it's been R1. I'm against the rezoning of it because, again, we're trying to jam a commercial property, a CS property, which can be almost anything, in the middle of two residential properties. The effects that it has is just, can't imagine. The traffic that it's going to create coming in and out, the realignment of Cedar Cross Road with a right turn lane. We don't know how long that right turn lane is going to be. Typically, I would guess, and in talking with traffic engineers and experience in traffic, you know, that turn lane could be 100 feet, could be more realistically 125 feet plus by the time you get the taper and the straight in there. You know, you're going to need 60 feet of straight, and then the taper is going to take it back farther, which completely takes it across the 595 address and will get it into the 405 Cedar Cross address. But, so who knows what that's going to be along with the side of CS. It can be anything. And with it being that close to the residential property that I reside at, it just, CS is so wide open, and because it's traditional, is that?
It's a traditional rezoning.
So with traditional, there are no guidelines for it. And drawing in the building that wants to be put on there, the drawings that I've seen, it's a 90-foot building that we want to put in there. We want to utilize that turn lane. The setbacks aren't necessarily drawn in correct because it's showing a 10-foot setback and it should be a 20-foot setback. So when you do all the math and add in the lane between the two properties of 405 and 595, I guess it's the property of 575 is what that driveway is. You know, you're going to end up with a 75-foot building with a 20-foot setback on each side. You don't get the 90-foot building that was initially proposed. You know, I know it's proposed as a storage building, but again, CS brings the fact that we're going to put the potential of a commercial building between two R1 properties, and it could be a body shop, it could be a repair facility, it could be a 3 build out for coffee shop, donut shop. I mean, the list goes on and on as to what can go in there. And it doesn't belong in between two R1 properties. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Virginia Till. I'm at 580 Woodland Ridge. First of all, is it legal to get a notice of this property because we did not receive one in information about this 405 Cedar Cross Road. I happened to hit it when I hit your zoning department and saw it then. So none of us have had any time, unless, I don't know, a few people have, but none of us have had any time. And I would think there's a law that protects the public for that.
I don't know about the notices that went out, Sheena, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Chair Mulligan, if I may. So yes, there is notification required to the property owners within 200 feet of the rezoning area boundary. So it is possible that, and I apologize, your property address, but it is possible that you would have been within that boundary for the larger project and not within the boundary for this property.
I see.
Yes, so it
Okay.
is, again, 200 feet from the boundary of the rezoning area to property owners that we notify.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you hear what I asked? Okay.
Yeah, so if you're on Woodlawn, you wouldn't have received a notice.
Right.
I'm sorry, sir,
If you live on Woodlawn, you would not have received a notice.
because of this 200 feet.
Right.
Okay, but you could understand why we would ask that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a
Sure.
fair question.
Thank you. Anybody else this evening?
I just have a comment. There's been a lot.
I'm sorry, if you could
There's
state your
been a
name and
lot-
address,
Ellen
please.
Dillon, 505 Woodland Ridge. There's been a lot in the news, in the newspaper about housing. It's a shortage. It seems to me that the city isn't looking at the existing neighborhood that they're trying to put this into. I mean, what is your process when, the city council wants more housing? Are they just willing to stick it anywhere?
So we can discuss that during our open session. So do you have any other comments to share?
It just seems ridiculous that we're even having this conversation. I'm frustrated, so.
Thank you. Okay.
I just got a question to ask her. Has it been considered that we could, instead of having an entryway off a Nightingale, to take this property that we were talking about rezoning from R1 to whatever, commercial? Why not take that property and make that an entryway right directly off of Cedar Cross Road?
Yeah, that'll be something the developer will need to look into if he chooses.
It'd be much safer that way.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Lester, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sarzen, yeah.
Any other comments? Was it Emily? Yes. Okay.
Emily at 3135 Nightingale. I just wanted to reiterate all the same points that we had with the original property rezoning. I think still applies at this location for the commercial, and just the fact that this has been residential for 40 plus years. I feel that there is not any significant value to change it to commercial for this, so I am opposed to the rezoning of this.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Any other comments this evening? Okay, I will close the public hearing. I'll open it up to the applicant for any rebuttal. See, he is left. Okay, I believe it's Travis, right?
It is. I'm Assistant Planner Travis Shrubelgen. Obviously, the applicant is requesting a rezoning from CS, or from R1 to CS. This is a mixed-use neighborhood. There are adjacent residential dwellings nearby. Any commercial property through the DRT would require a 20-foot setback from both those sides. And if the PR didn't go through, it would also be from the rear of the property. There's also a 20-foot setback from the front of the property. Just to address the rezonings, this wasn't a city initiative to rezone the property. This is a private developer finding a vacant piece of property and requesting to develop the property. And anybody in the city can request a rezoning of a property. So that's just the process, and we're obligated to follow through with that process. I would say screening would also be required. Again, what we had, the development or the conceptual plan showed a 90 by 50 building. That obviously would not fit, as was pointed out. So the applicant did change it to a 50 by 70 building already. And in this case, this is a traditional rezoning, so this is just a very preliminary site plan in this case. as opposed to a conceptual plan for a PUD. Traffic counts, as we mentioned, one commercial property adding to what is a minor arterial already would have a minimal impact. But other than that, I guess I'll just open it up to questions unless you, or I'll leave it open to questions.
Thank you, Travis. Any questions for staff? Can you go back to the aerial? What is on that parcel right now?
The parcel currently, so historically there was a trailer, single family mobile home, and then there was that garage that's there. Obviously the mobile home was removed and that remained. So that's what is there. It's vacant. Other than that, the developer did suggest that he would tear that down in the event it was rezoned.
How many houses are on Cedar Cross?
Directly facing Cedar Cross? Just around this corner here, or?
Good question. Specifically with access, who have a driveway off of Cedar Cross?
Probably those two until you get down. Yeah, actually, I think it's probably just those two, just from memory. Because as you go east or southeast, you're going to get into a commercial corridor or a heavier commercial corridor, less mixed uses, until you get down to these subdivisions. That is a residence there that does have a driveway. It is zoned C2, though. Yes. Oh, sorry. No, that's. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Not very many.
Not very many. Okay. Any other questions for staff from the commission? All right. I'll open it up to conversation amongst the commission then.
I guess I'll just say that since it sounds like these properties are combined in the transaction that the developer had, I'm likely going to vote the same way that I did on the other requests. And I mean, again, I would say to me, it doesn't fit in with the character of that neighborhood.
Okay.
I actually would have voted for this rezoning, but only if 401 and 595 were also included. But it doesn't make sense just to do the middle piece of this block.
Okay. Any other conversation amongst the group? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we recommend disapproval of the request.
No. I'm sorry, vote in the affirmative and then you just deny it. Or say no.
Okay. I move we recommend approval of the request to rezone from R1 to commercial services.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I will second that. Jason?
Semp?
No.
Zucchero?
No.
Kemp?
No.
Russell?
No.
Mulligan?
Yes. Okay, that motion does fail. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to 1. So that will go before the City Council on the 20th. I appreciate everybody coming in. Thank you. Okay, our next item, number 3, is a rezoning of Westside Drive, lot number 2, Weber Acres. The PIN is stated as such. Looks like our applicant is the City of Dubuque. Is that Jason this evening?
We got somebody.
Assistant City
there
Engineer
he is.
Bob Shizzle will be representing this case.
Okay, great. Hi, Bob.
Good evening, everybody. Bob Chisel, Assistant City Engineer. My work address is City Hall, 50 West 13th Street. So what we are requesting tonight, and I guess I'll take a little step back. So
Hey, Bob, can we pause for a minute? Hey, those of you that are in the chambers, if we could exit.
Maybe close the doors.
What's that?
Rude.
Okay. Let's proceed forward, Bob.
All right. So as part of the US 52 Southwest Arterial project, the city was responsible for all of the property acquisition for that project. And as part of that requirement, we are now going back after the project and we are cleaning up, so to speak, the various sections of the right-of-way that were acquired as part of the project. So we are resurveying and replatting the West Side Drive area. That portion of the property was partially owned by the Iowa DOT and a portion by the City of Dubuque. So as part of the survey and replatting process, West Side Drive will become a city jurisdictional roadway, and then we will separate off the highway, and so really we're just re-cleaning up, replatting, and cleaning up this these segments along the corridor. So we're working on the old highway, West Side Drive area right now, and then we're going to be working towards Highway 20 all the way to 61-151, and doing this whole survey replatting process. So this particular piece of property will be replatted off, and then it's kind of been identified as potential excess right-of-way. And so the Iowa DOT, once it's replatted and rezoned, the Iowa DOT is interested in disposing of that piece of property.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Any questions this evening for Bob? Very good. Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing, isn't it? So I'll open it up to the public for any comments. And I will now close it. Bob, any rebuttal to that? Thank you. Jason, it looks like you are the staff report this evening.
Yes, thank you. Jason Duba, Assistant Planner. The Iowa Department of Transportation is working with the City of Dubuque to dispose of excess property that was acquired as part of the Southwest Arterial development process, but is no longer needed since construction of the highway has been completed. Currently, the property is zoned County M2 Heavy Industrial. The rezoning is being requested concurrent with annexation into the city. Once the property is annexed and rezoned, Iowa DOT seeks to sell it, and it is possible that it could be purchased by the adjacent property owner to the west. The proposed zoning of CS, commercial service and wholesale, is consistent with the existing zoning of the properties on West Side Court and would allow uses that are currently permitted and operating there. The preamble to the CS section describes the zone this way. The CS district is intended to provide locations for a variety of business services, office uses, limited industrial activity, and major wholesale operations. The CS district uses are primarily characterized by large storage space requirements, high volume truck traffic, and low volume customer traffic. It is intended that the CS district is one that provides a transitional zone that can be used between industrial and commercial uses, and in cases where topography establishes a transitional area due to physical limitations between industrial and higher density residential development. The comprehensive plan supports this with recommendations such as collaborating with the surrounding state departments of transportation to promote safe, efficient regional roadway connections, and being responsive to market demands and the needs of residents by providing key retail and employment centers and ensuring that such development does not impact the quality of life in adjacent residential neighborhoods. Adequate city utilities are available on West Side Court and could be extended to the subject property. The CS regulations contain bulk standards that include requirements for lot area, lot coverage, frontage, building height, and setbacks for front, rear, and side yards. These items would be reviewed for compliance during the site plan review process that you're familiar with. Thank you.
Jason, thank you. Any questions for Jason? Okay. With that, I'll open it up to any conversation amongst the group. Seeing none, I'll open it up to a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommend approval for the zoning request for rezone from county M2 heavy industrial to city CS in conjunction with the annexation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Jason, would you take roll?
Zucchero?
Aye.
Kemp?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Russell?
Aye.
Semp?
Aye.
Mulligan?
Aye. All right, that motion passes. We'll go before City Council on June 20th. Bob, thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to any items from the public. Seeing none.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, boy. Wally?
Yeah. This rezoning request will actually go on to the first meeting in July. July, what is that, Jason?
Yeah, July 5th.
5th, yeah.
We're delaying
July
it.
5th.
Oh.
We have set for public hearing for the actual annexation, so the annexation will be heard on July 5th, and we'll have the rezoning at the same time, so it'll be on the July 5th meeting. Sorry.
Got it. Okay. Well, now I'll close it to the public. Any items from the commission? Okay, I do have one. We have got to get a list together that identifies, it feels like such empty words to say there's this process that we go through. And I've been through it a lot, specifically with our city, and it's hard. Like the traffic studies, the light studies, this study, that study, and as the developer, it drives you bonkers. As the neighbor, that's what they're asking for, and they're putting that in our court to say, zoning board, you need to do a traffic study. No, we don't, because we can't get out of that conversation ever. You'll never have a traffic report that's going to satisfy somebody at a board like this. So if we have a checklist that says, okay, 50 people that don't like this, we listened for an hour and you heard noise, traffic, and headlights. That's what you heard.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And some runoff.
And runoff. You're fixing the runoff, by the way, but anyways.
Right.
So there's got to be a list. So we can say, gang, here's the 50 stops this bus has to make before a shovel goes in the ground. It's got to be like a PDF that we can say, right now, you're here, developer, and this has to go all the way to here. You know, they feel like tomorrow the excavator is going to show up at the site and they're going to start digging, and that could not be further from the truth. I mean, we prevented a lot of things from happening on a site that will never be anything, and that's fine. That's why we are a board, because we can make those decisions. But the notion was none of those things can be addressed, and I don't feel like we conveyed a clear message in terms of how those are addressed, other than saying they'll be addressed. It feels empty coming from us to them. So if we have a thing that, a flow chart that says, here you go. I sit in those meetings with you all the time, and it is not, you can have a job that's an absolute slam dunk, and there are boxes you have got to check. And his was a little more challenging for the reasons we heard, but you know, anyways, I'll stop there.
I would just say I agree with you too, though, like for two reasons. One, having something that we can put up on the screen during like particularly very controversial meetings. It'd be nice to be able to say like, we've checked 2 boxes out of, like you said, like 50 to be able to demonstrate to people like all the other steps that need to be gone through. Yeah. But it also might be helpful if, you know, in the notices that are sent out to residents, if, you know, if that was included in there as well, so they understood where it was in the process, just when they get the notice of rezoning, so that, you know, they don't think, like you said, that tomorrow construction is going to begin. So I can see the value in that.
Yeah, you almost need a map, right? That says, okay, here's the 13 houses within 200 feet that got something on their door. And did you read your mail? Because
we can absolutely look at creating something of that nature. We've been talking a lot about process and flow charts in our office too, and how to make it clearer as to what a process looks like for quite frankly everyone, even an applicant that might be walking in the door, because it is a little bit confusing. You walk in and there's, as you mentioned, Chair Mulligan, there's so many pieces that go into even that DRT review process, and so many kind of cycles that happen and discussions that happen, and it's by no means just overnight approval and things move forward. So we can absolutely look at those options and see how we might be able to better communicate those in, you know, both visually, but also in to Commissioner Stump's point, we can look at notification items too, or there's multiple options I think that we could consider.
I will say when I began here, the notifications were just the words. So we have added the maps at least.
Yes, they do get that notification map to show the radius area and what properties have been notified. That doesn't get included. It has been an evolution. But,
so it says you are receiving this notice because you are within 200 feet of this proposed rezoning?
Correct. And it also shows the rate, like the actual map, like the maps we have up, the notification maps. Yes, like project site, radius area, and shows where their property is within that.
It's not overly detailed, but we do have on there the contact planning services staff for any questions, concerns, comments. That's just something's going on in your neighborhood type of letter.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a hard time, you know, conveying all the information all at once, just because it is complicated. There is a lot of information, but even if it's something that we can consistently share, even if it's not in the initial notice, if it's part of the follow-up, and we can do both really. But I think there's opportunities to improve that. I'm sorry.
A flow chart on the website, maybe?
Sure, we could absolutely.
Refer people to the website. I mean, that's very common. Little
Yeah.
QR code or something that they
Yeah.
can zing and get there. I mean, it's.
Yep.
And it's a
We
double-edged
appreciate
sword
that
too,
feedback.
because they'll say, well, Sheena, you said I only had to do this once.
Right.
So you got to give yourself some room for that.
Right. There has to be some, it's not always that cut and dry, but you're right. This overarching discussion of, hey, rezoning is step one in the 3 or 4 steps of actually getting to a point of construction is certainly something that we can visually display to give them a better understanding of where we are at.
Right. And I would also add that we have to balance kind of the notification requirements and the lead time it takes to get those out and then get the notifications to people. So sometimes we don't have all the information at the time to add to a notification. So they can be tricky sometimes, but absolutely we are looking into all those things.
How do you I know everybody wants to leave, but I have to ask this question because it comes up 90% of the time. How do you determine if traffic is heavy or not? How do you quantify that?
Right. So we would work with our city engineering staff to help us determine what is considered a substantial impact or a threshold that's based on the roadways that we're looking at. So the type of roadways, what those roadways are designed to be able to handle. That would be a major point of it.
What is it able to handle? Okay, so like Nightingale had an average trip of 800.
Yep.
I don't know that
25.
we've seen one actually that limited.
It wasn't that, was it?
Average annually.
Was it less than that?
It was 853.
Real quick, in reality, what the,
So
because of the softball and baseball.
what happens is the trips, I mean, that's part of it, but then it also comes down to roadway geometry and a couple other things. And that factors into a level of service. And so like a level of service A is you're driving down an interstate and you're the only car you can see in sight.
Okay.
And a level of service, I don't know, what's the bottom one, F or something like
F.
that?
Bumper to bumper.
That's bumper to bumper,
20 miles
standstill
an
traffic.
hour.
Takes
stop
you an
and
hour to
go.
go.
is there a
mile.
reason it's F? It's a
Right.
no.
You know, and what
It's the word you
what
use when
happens
you're in
is
that
traffic
traffic.
studies will take the
cluster.
projected traffic, that's going to be added to the road, what it is right now, and they will use that data to quantify a level of service at various times throughout the day.
So would
Quantify the level of
would
service.
you, as a commission, having had the current level of so we were 800 what is it? Vehicle trips? Is that what it is?
Average annual daily trips.
Daily-
So it's
It's
an
not daily
average
trips.
number.
Yes,
It takes
thank
into account peak hours, peak days, and tries to average that out.
So in theory, it says there's going to be 800 cars on that road, just give or take. We were adding 230, so we're adding 25% to what's there. So
But it's
this
when are
is-
we adding those? That's the key.
yes,
It's a timing thing too.
And what is the level of service upon the addition of said traffic, right? Would that data have armed you with anything that was of value?
It would be helpful to me if there was a change in grade. If it went from B to C, I think that would be informative.
Yeah, I think it would give, because what we heard tonight was all perception, right? Traffic is atrocious right now.
Well, in this particular instance, I'm not going to say that now. I'll say it after the meeting.
Okay. Very good.
If I may add to that, so what you're getting at is you're trying to get more information to make your decision and quantify it for the public. That also takes time. So now you got to get into DRT before you even get a rezoning.
That's fair.
So that's just something we balance and we're trying to keep in mind.
And that's kind of what I was getting to at the beginning of my presentation tonight, was that there is, as you know, there is a investment factor in this, and there is, we know for that particular residential project that a traffic analysis was something that engineering was going to want, the scope of which is determined by the city's traffic engineering department. So we don't always get to sit in those, we don't sit in those meetings necessarily. I could see the perception of that being a little bit cart in front of the horse, right? To go through rezoning and then talk about traffic after.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about a proper, it's this balance that we're trying to strike, right? A property owner or developer having to now invest potentially for a traffic study, thousands of dollars into a project that they don't know if it could even move forward.
So in theory, the data from your seat, in theory, that data does not exist yet to suggest the level of service is somewhere and would be somewhere.
Right.
So like knowing the average, the whatever.
AEDT.
Yeah, AEDT, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. That data exists because we have it.
Correct.
But we can't suggest a level of service, because I don't know, genuinely. We can't suggest the level of service is an A or an F with that data until the traffic study is done. Is that
So a traffic
accurate?
study or a traffic analysis of some sort is completed, correct?
Okay. So it's
Now,
not
yes.
it's not a chart that says that
It's
road can
not
handle
that black
much.
and white.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Fair enough then.
Now, if we have that data and we can get that data from engineering, we'll share that.
Sure.
But in most instances, we can share what we can get from, the Iowa DOT site, and then we work with engineering to kind of project, hey, a 32-unit multifamily project, about how many trips do we think on average that's going to generate? And that's based on a lot of traffic generation data. They have big books that tell them that information, and they have formulas they can plug that into.
Yeah.
So it's based on the best information we can get at this point.
Okay. So it's not fair to use a broad brush then. It's
correct.
Fair enough. Okay. Anything else? Thanks for your patience.
Staff?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have something.
Oh.
Go ahead, Sheena.
I'm like, wait, what do I have? Just that I know Commissioner Senf is going to be leaving us, so just wanted to say thank you to him for his time. We've greatly appreciated and enjoyed working with him, and wish him the best of luck with his new endeavor.
Are you
and we will
moving?
be having.
Are moving.
Moving
I
down
know,
to
I
the
saw
Quad
that,
Cities.
but wasn't
Yep.
sure if you were driving or picking up the, okay. Congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you.
And then, so we will have some openings. So if you know anyone interested in being a part of the commission, please encourage them to apply.
Very good.
That's all we have for this evening.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
So moved.
All in
Can I do that?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.